Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about interactive storytelling, specifically in video games. There's other ways you could do it, like those tell your own or choose your own adventure books, but I mean, they're not as cool as video games. So I've recently been really interested in this because of my friend Jack, who founded Studio Disrupt. They make virtual reality films. Their first one was Please State Your Name, and they're currently working on La Camila. But the one thing I found that they were missing was interactivity, because they still have that bystander effect, even though you're actually in that world, but you can't interact with it. So I thought that was kind of weird, and I think interactivity would really help the films and stand out from traditional movies. But it changes how you tell a story when you add interactivity, because it takes away a path that the story would follow. So basically the developer just has to create the setting in the world for the player, and then the player determines how the story goes, what decisions to make, yeah. So there's advantages and disadvantages to doing this, obviously. Some pros for the player specifically are that there's a really large amount of content to explore, and it captivates you a lot more. It keeps you immersed in the world that's been designed for you. And there's a lot of replayability, because each playthrough can be very different depending on the choices that you make. But there's really long development times on these games. Like, for example, Skyrim and Fallout were about 4 years full time, but Fallout 4 has been in development for roughly 7 years. And you can't just have a really good story, you need to design game mechanics that are interesting and keep the players involved as well. So 3 examples that I'm going to be talking about are Telltale Games, the company Bethesda and their games, and the game Until Dawn, because they all use interactivity with their story, but they all do it in very different ways. So Until Dawn uses a butterfly effect, where, if you look at the picture, you start at the body of the butterfly and make a core decision, and it branches out into the different veins, I guess you could say. And then it branches out more and more depending on the decisions that you make. And it depicts the outcome that you'll get at the end of the game, like which players live, what relationships are like. And that one is pretty interesting. Telltale's choices are a little bit different, because their games are broken up into episodes, and the choices you make don't really impact where the story ends, because no matter what playthrough you have, they kind of end in the same place no matter what. It basically changes your relationships with characters, and if they're more willing to help you or not. And finally, Bethesda, they use my favorite technique, which is they use open worlds. Sorry, Bryce. So basically, your playthrough can be whatever you want it to be. You could follow the quest lines, you could just hunt for as long as you wanted, or you can just kill everyone. That's pretty cool. Their games are more immersion-based, where you want to be involved in the story and you want to learn more about the background of the story. And I think that's the best way to do it, personally. And that's my speech.